You probably know Novak Djokovic, the 24-time Grand Slam champion, the man who ruled the court with cold precision and mental resilience. But what if I told you that in October 2025, he was taken down by someone whose name didn't even appear on the official tournament poster? This isn't a story about a lucky match point or an off day for a legend. This is about Valentin Vacherot, a man written off as just another Monaco rich kid, a player ranked 204th in the world, who walked into the Shanghai Masters not through an invitation, but through the grueling qualifiers. No buzz, no hype, just a quiet storm building behind the scenes. In a week that saw top-seeded players drop like dominoes, injuries, fatigue, and murmurs of ADP favoritism swirling through the air, one man remained unshaken. While the spotlight danced elsewhere, Vacherot turned each match into a silent rebellion. Every swing of his racket wasn't just a play, it was a statement. You underestimated the wrong man. Even Djokovic, stoic and unflappable, admitted something had shifted. After their match, he said, "When a player plays with that kind of freedom, you can feel it even across the net." But here's the part that mainstream media never told you. Valentin Vacherot didn't come to Shanghai to make headlines. He came with a mission, one rooted in years of quiet resentment. This wasn't about one tournament. It was about every closed door, every snide comment about his background, every moment he was told he didn't belong in the elite circle of tennis. Behind that icy stare and unshakable composure is a story of rejection, reinvention, and revenge. Because when you grow up in a world that assumes you have it all, no one gives you credit for the work you put in. And Vacherot? He turned that silence into fuel. And what happens at the 17-minute mark of this video? A moment even the ADP doesn't want highlighted. Might just change how you view talent, privilege, and the politics of global tennis. If you believe greatness isn't born in spotlight, but in shadows, you're in the right place. This is more than just a highlight reel. This is a truth-telling journey. Subscribe to Pro Tennis 360 and stay with us, because what comes next will make you question everything you thought you knew about underdogs. This is Valentin Vacherot, and he didn't just win a Masters 1000. He rewrote the rules of who gets to rise. Cracks in the system. Valentin's rise didn't just expose a talent. It exposed a fault line. The ADP had long built its narrative on underdogs, but only the right kind of underdogs. Poor, marketable, emotionally telegenic. Valentin didn't fit that script. He didn't cry on camera. He didn't ask for sympathy. And worst of all, he won without their system. There were murmurs about wild cards that mysteriously never came his way, about commentators being encouraged to focus on other players, about ADP marketing departments unsure how to sell a man who refused to play the fame game. In a now-deleted tweet, one former ADP staffer wrote, "He's everything the board claims to support, but nothing they know how to handle." Fans noticed too. They began comparing stats. Valentin's consistency versus those given primetime slots. The numbers didn't lie. He outplayed many, but was promoted less. Then came the controversy at the Rome Masters earlier that year. Valentin won a controversial match against a fan favorite. The ADP's recap omitted him from the headline. Forums erupted. Hashtags like #VacherotSnub trended. It wasn't a conspiracy, it was obvious. Shanghai changed that. Because when the whole world watches you dismantle Djokovic, the ADP can't edit you out. Valentin never commented on the bias directly. He didn't have to. His results spoke for him. But to fans, it was bigger than tennis. It was a reckoning. And at minute 17 of this video, you'll see the moment that proved it. Payoff. The moment they tried to hide. It happened at 17 minutes past the hour during a mid-match changeover. Cameras were rolling. The stadium was quiet. And Valentin was seated, towel draped around his neck, when the on-court mic picked up a conversation between ADP officials just off-court. The words weren't meant for broadcast. "How did he get here?" one voice said, followed by another, "We can't market this." The clip aired live. For a moment, producers froze. Then, the feed cut, replaced by crowd shots. Later replays excluded the audio entirely. But the internet doesn't forget. Clips surfaced online. Slowed down. Subtitled. Dissected frame by frame. Fans exploded. To some, it was confirmation of what they'd long suspected, that the tennis world wasn't built to accommodate someone like Valentin. That success wasn't enough. You had to be marketable in the right way. Valentin never addressed the moment. But after the match, during a subdued press conference, he was asked what surprised him most about the week. He paused, then said that it took this long to notice. That sentence, 7 words, became a rallying cry. Printed on shirts, chanted in student sections, quoted in op-eds. It took this long to notice wasn't just about tennis. It was about every system that overlooks quiet strength in favor of loud familiarity. Because Valentin wasn't just fighting for points. He was fighting for visibility, for legitimacy, for every athlete whose story doesn't come wrapped in a perfect PR package. And that's the real victory. He didn't break Djokovic. He broke the illusion. A legend built in silence. As the season wound down, interviews flooded in. Requests from Netflix, from GQ, from global brands. He turned down nearly all of them. Because Valentin Vacherot never wanted to be famous. He wanted to be undeniable. And he is. He rewrote the blueprint. That an athlete doesn't need to come from hardship to be hungry. That being quiet isn't weakness. That dignity can beat drama. That sometimes the most dangerous player isn't the one roaring, but the one you forgot to watch. So the next time you scroll ADP headlines and see a polished star selling sneakers or showing off six-packs, remember, somewhere out there is a man training in silence. Not for the cameras, not for the applause, but because the fire inside refuses to die. And if you believe in stories like this, stories that don't get told enough, then you're exactly who we made this video for. Subscribe to Pro Tennis 360 to make sure voices like Valentin's don't disappear again. Because the system won't tell these stories. But we will. You've seen the game. Now you know the truth. Bloodline, burden, and the silent war. Valentin Vacherot wasn't just born into luxury. He was born into scrutiny. In Monte Carlo, a city where opulence is mistaken for ease, his family name opened doors, but also closed minds. His great-uncle, Gilles Biancheri, was a revered name in Monaco's elite athletic circles. His older brother, Benjamin Biancheri, had his own accolades in sport. The Vacherot name carried weight and expectations that crushed more than they uplifted. From the outside, it looked like a tennis fairy tale. Private academies, top-tier coaches, courts overlooking the Mediterranean. But inside, there was an unspoken truth. No one believed he had grit. He has the pedigree, but not the pain, murmured one former coach. That line didn't just sting. It defined how people viewed him. Every win was credited to privilege. Every loss was seen as proof he couldn't handle pressure. Valentin wasn't seen as an athlete. He was seen as a symbol of access, of wealth, of ease. And the tennis world loves an underdog, but only the kind that bleeds. What they missed was what happened off camera. While other juniors were celebrated, Valentin was second-guessed. While others were praised for their hunger, he was punished for his surname. He trained in silence. He competed without cheers. And when he lost, no one comforted him, because they assumed he could afford to lose. But pain doesn't care about your bank account. Rejection still stings. And for Valentin, every tournament became a battleground not just against opponents, but against perception. He wasn't trying to prove he was good enough to play. He was trying to prove he was allowed to belong. Before he ever stepped onto a main court, he had to survive years of whispers, smirks, and dismissal. And still, he kept showing up. Not for validation, not for headlines, but to start a quiet war against everything they assumed about players like him. That war had just begun. The invisible years. If you searched for Valentin Vacherot in the tennis press between 2018 and 2022, you'd find almost nothing. A name buried in the qualifiers. A footnote in match summaries. In an era obsessed with rising stars and overnight success, Valentin became an expert in something far less glamorous: obscurity. He trained in the US, competing under the radar at Texas A&M, while most of his peers either burned out or broke through. College tennis is often viewed as a fallback, not a launchpad, and for an athlete with a Monaco passport, it only deepened the stereotype. He's not serious. He's playing for fun. But that view was dangerously wrong. While others sought attention, Valentin embraced invisibility. He didn't chase media. He didn't buy his way into tournaments. He earned every entry the hard way, grinding through futures and challengers in front of empty bleachers, on courts where the only sound was the echo of self-doubt. He took red-eye flights to low-paying events, slept in budget motels, played through injuries that would have sidelined anyone else. Not because he had to, but because he refused to let anyone say he didn't want it enough. Every loss was another layer of armor. Every snub from the ADP a reminder that this road would not be paved for him. He wasn't denied because he lacked talent. He was denied because he didn't fit the story tennis likes to sell. By 2023, he had racked up dozens of matches few people watched. But the fire? It never dimmed. In interviews, rare as they were, he always deflected credit. "I'm still learning," he'd say. But behind those words was a storm building. Because when you play for years with no camera, no sponsor, and no recognition, you stop playing for applause. You start playing for vengeance. Breaking points and breakthroughs. 2024 was supposed to be another year of struggle. Instead, it became the year Valentin cracked the code. He entered the season with zero expectations from the outside world. Still unseated, still seen as a journeyman. But something shifted, not in his technique, but in his mentality. He stopped trying to impress. He started playing with defiance. He upset a top 100 player in Marbella, then another in Lyon. By summer, whispers began, "Who is this guy?" But with every win came fresh skepticism. Some labeled him lucky. Others said he was finally living up to the potential his name implied. What none of them saw was the personal war he was waging behind the scenes. He was still self-funding his travel, still outside the ADP circle of media darlings. But now, he had something far more dangerous: momentum. What truly changed everything was Gushtad. A wild card entry gone wrong, for the tournament organizers, not for him. Valentin bulldozed through the early rounds, taking out local favorites and shocking seeded veterans. He didn't just win, he dominated. The press had no choice but to notice. And when asked what sparked the turnaround, he simply replied, "Maybe I just got tired of waiting." Those words echoed in locker rooms, in interviews, in coaching forums, and somewhere, the ADP quietly added his name to the list of players to watch. But by then, it was already too late. The silent hunter. Shanghai wasn't supposed to be his stage. Not officially. Valentin had to fight through qualifiers just to make the main draw. No special favors. No sponsor exemptions. Just sweat, tape, and repetition. His first match? A 3-set dogfight against a seasoned clay court specialist. No cameras. No highlight reels. Just a gritty win in an empty stadium. Then another. Then another. Each match revealed a player who had stopped caring about fame and started caring only about execution. His game wasn't flashy, but it was lethal. Deep returns, relentless pace, a mental stillness that made opponents unravel. Analysts struggled to describe his style. Was he defensive? Offensive? They missed the point. Valentin played like a man with nothing to lose, and that made him terrifying. By the time he reached the round of 16, fans were whispering his name. By the quarters, commentators had scrambled for sound bites. But Valentin? He didn't flinch. No celebration, no theatrics, just another match, another victim. Because to him, every round wasn't progress. It was overdue. And then came Djokovic. The night he broke Djokovic. It was never supposed to happen. Not against Novak. Not in a Masters 1000. Not in straight sets. But it did. Valentin Vacherot stepped onto the court that night with no national flag stitched on his sleeve, no brand endorsements, no expectations. He was the definition of a long shot. Across the net stood Novak Djokovic, the man who had crushed countless Cinderella runs without blinking. And yet, within the first 5 games, something felt off. Not with Novak. With Valentin. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't cautious. He was precise, cold, calculated. His returns were early, almost predictive. His footwork relentless. And most of all, he played like the scoreboard didn't matter. He didn't flinch when broken. He didn't celebrate when ahead. He just kept playing. Midway through the second set, the crowd, initially lukewarm, began to turn. Whispers grew louder. Is this actually happening? And then came the moment. Break point at 4-4. Djokovic served wide. Vacherot anticipated it. Crushed a backhand down the line. Clean winner. The stadium erupted. Djokovic stared across the net, expression unreadable. For once, he was on the defensive. Valentin closed the match like he'd done it 100 times. A simple fist pump. No scream. No drop to his knees. He shook Novak's hand and walked off like a man late for dinner. Commentators fumbled for narratives. Fans flooded Reddit. ADP's official account delayed posting the highlight. Because in that moment, a myth cracked. And a ghost became real. The Aftershock. The tennis world didn't know what to do with Valentin Vacherot. Beating Djokovic was supposed to be career-defining, a launchpad. But for Valentin, it was business as usual. No press tour, no new agent. He skipped the after-parties, spent the next day in recovery. And when asked what the win meant, he simply said, "It means I play tomorrow." But outside, things were shifting. Sponsors who had ghosted him started calling. Commentators rewrote their talking points. Old clips resurfaced, moments where his potential was brushed off, laughed at, ignored. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of the story they never believed in. And yet, Valentin didn't bite. He declined flashy endorsement deals, turned down magazine features. When ADP offered him a sponsored segment, he reportedly asked, "Would you have called last month?" The fans noticed, and they rallied. Forums lit up with praise, not just for his game, but for his attitude. "He's the realest thing in tennis right now," one comment read. No filters, no brand training, just game. Shanghai wasn't just his breakout. It was his refusal to conform. In a sport obsessed with polish and politeness, Valentin reminded everyone that raw, unfiltered hunger still has a place. But the real twist? He wasn't done yet. The final blow. The final in Shanghai was supposed to be symbolic. A ranked player versus the qualifier. A return to normalcy. Except Valentin had other plans. His opponent, a top 10 baseliner known for endurance and precision. The kind of player who thrives in long rallies. Analysts predicted a straight-set win. The odds, once again, weren't in Valentin's favor. But from the first point, it was clear. He wasn't just playing well. He was dictating. He served with confidence. Attacked second serves. Flattened out rallies. And when his opponent tried to drag him into 5-shot exchanges, Valentin changed the tempo, forcing errors and rushing the net. The final lasted just under 2 hours. Valentin didn't just win. He controlled. As the last point dropped, he didn't throw his racket. No scream. Just a nod to his box and a quiet walk to the net. The stadium rose, applauding not just the result, but the rebellion. Valentin Vacherot, world ranking 204, had just won a Masters 1000 title. On merit, on grit, without a sponsor on his shirt or a flag behind his name. And as he lifted the trophy, one could almost hear the silence across ADP boardrooms. This wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And nothing in tennis would feel the same again. Luxury with purpose. One of the biggest contradictions in Valentin Vacherot's public image was the life he returned to off-court. Monte Carlo, superyachts, family legacy. On the surface, he seemed like everything tennis purists detest. A player born into affluence. Not hungry enough, not rugged enough. But that narrative couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, Valentin came from wealth. But what he built alone. Unlike other players flaunting luxury as identity, Valentin hid it. No private jet photos, No flashy endorsements. His social media, dead quiet. His lifestyle, disciplined to the point of monk-like. And those closest to him knew why. After years of being mocked as the rich kid tourist, Valentin committed to becoming the kind of player no one could dismiss. He stopped leaning on family, started traveling solo, managed his own recovery, his diet, even his gear logistics. And when asked about Monaco, he once said, "It's a beautiful place, but it's not where I find my fire." Unlike stars who chase visibility, Valentin chased silence, training in offbeat locations, avoiding ATP mixers, no entourages, just a racket and the resentment that had fueled him for years. His wealth wasn't his advantage, it was his shadow. And every time he walked into a locker room, that shadow followed him. Whispers, side glances, cold shoulders. But by 2025, no one dared say it aloud. Because the man once judged for having too much, had given up everything just to be treated like he belonged.